As a kid, I loved Christmas. I mean, every single thing about Christmas, but the thing I loved the most were the gifts. There is no better feeling than being a kid on Christmas, walking out and seeing presents for you under the tree. But as much as I loved Christmas, it seemed like my mom loved Christmas even more. I mean, my mom made Christmas for us. As a grown-up and a mother myself, I realize exactly how much work she must have put into making Christmas wonderful for 3 kids all on her own. But as a child, all I knew that on Christmas morning, our house was filled with the smell of cinnamon rolls. Our day was infused with a sense of joy, and every gift was full of love. Okay, so I probably didn't think of things quite that way, but somewhere in all of that gift getting, I assumed Mom had something to do with it. Now, as a teenager, I still loved Christmas, but, it wasn't the same. I mean, gifts were more practical, and after we were done opening presents, I'd go back to my room and read my new book or try on my new outfit. The day was still filled with love, but it was the boring, daily kind of love, the kind you just take for granted. Now, the Christmas that I was 16 years old, I was a junior in high school, and I was working at the local 5 and Dime, stocking the shelves with manufactured Christmas cheer. It was about 3 weeks before Christmas. The manager called me to the front of the store. It was an hour before my shift was going to end, and my sister Erica was there. And she'd been crying. She was still crying. She said, "Mom's in the hospital. I don't know anything else." I went and grabbed my stuff. We got in Erica's beat-up old Pinto, and we drove to the hospital in silence, because what could we say? We walked into the emergency room, and a nurse told us to go wait, which we did. And eventually someone official-looking came over and said, "You can go see your mother now, one at a time, not for long." Erica went in first. I sat in the hall, not knowing anything and trying not to think about it. And a little while later, Erica came out and she was crying, but she didn't say anything. And then it was my turn. I walked into the room and Mom was lying there, awake, with cables all over her and tubes in her nose and a machine that was beeping and blinking and a nurse by her side. It was terrifying. But I wanted to seem calm because I thought that's what you were supposed to do in this situation. So I just said, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" Mom didn't answer me. She just shook her head and looked at the nurse. The nurse turned to her and said, "I know, you're trying to say it, but it won't come out." And Mom nodded back at him. Why was she communicating with him and not to me? What was it she was afraid to tell me? I said, "Mom, are you okay?" She shrugged and shook her head helplessly. And I felt like I was going to start crying, and so to avoid that, I just went up to her and very carefully hugged her around the cables. But after just a minute, the nurse told me I had to leave. So I went back to sitting in the hall next to Erica, and we went back to waiting in ignorance and fear for what felt like a really long time before a doctor finally came to explain things to us. And I'm sure he said many things, but the only word I heard was stroke. It was like the beating of a gong. Stroke, stroke, stroke. Mom wasn't not telling me bad news. Mom wasn't talking to me because she couldn't talk, because she'd had a stroke. Of course, having a stroke is pretty bad news. That night, Mom could hardly speak at all. She lost the vision in one eye. Her hand kind of shriveled up. She could no longer read, write, understand numbers, and standing without falling over was impossible. But by just a few days later, she was able to talk. She could say, "I love you, Erica." And yeah, it annoyed me that she got Erica's name before she got mine. But I forgave her. After all, when the doctor held up a pen and asked her what it was, she still called it a cow. After a week in the hospital, they moved Mom to an inpatient rehab center, and Erica and I went back to life as usual. While I went to high school and Erica went to college, my mom went back to elementary school. She had occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and recreational therapy, so pretty much every kind of therapy other than actual therapy. And during the day, she made great progress. But unfortunately, at night, she shared her room with this horrible old woman who complained about everything, including the fact that Mom had visitors. And I hated visiting. The building smelled like a really dirty bathroom that someone had tried to clean with chlorine bleach, but had just succeeded in adding an extra stinky smell, you know? And then there were all these people walking around, and I'm sorry, but they were scary to me. They were moaning and looked funny, and I just hated that my mom was stuck there. But whenever we'd go visit, Mom only worried about us. She'd hold me and pet my hair and say, "Poor kids." We told her we were fine, but the truth is, being on our own was not easy. Now, Erica and I were pretty proficient at making meals. I mean, it's not that hard to put a frozen dinner in the microwave. And we'd been pouring milk over Cookie Crisp cereal for breakfast for years. And then, obviously, being health nuts, we'd just skip lunch altogether. So we had meals covered. But Mom had always taken care of everything else. The first time Erica and I went grocery shopping on our own, when we walked in, I just got hit with this wave of anxiety, and I felt this sob rising up in me, and I had to run out into the parking lot and curl up in a ball and cry. It's not that shopping is that hard. It's just that I wasn't prepared to do it without Mom. I wasn't ready for that responsibility. Somehow, Erica and I held it together. We took care of the groceries and the chores and the bills and dealt with the hospital and the insurance and homework. And then there was Christmas, right around the corner. In a monumental failure of judgment, the rehab center decided to cheer the place up a bit by decorating it and piping Christmas music through the loudspeakers all day long. And yes, it was as depressing as it sounds. If Mom hadn't been worried about the upcoming holidays, she was now. And unfortunately, they told us they didn't think Mom would be released in time for Christmas. In all likelihood, we would be spending our Christmas morning with Mom and her lovely roommate at the rehab center. And the horror of that thought was driven home every time we visited her, as without fail, they always seemed to be playing, "I'll be home for Christmas." You can count on that song to make you cry every time if the person you love won't be home for Christmas. On one visit, Mom told us where she had some cash hidden. She wanted us to use it to buy presents so that Christmas morning would still feel like Christmas. But we were barely holding it together financially, so we didn't spend Mom's hidden cash on gifts. We spent it on groceries and bills. But as much as I felt like a Grinch, some of our friends and some of my mom's friends chipped in and bought us a tree and gave us cash for stocking stuffers, and it felt like we had to do Christmas, if only because everyone seemed to want us to. So Erica and I decorated the tree, we hung the stockings, and we wrapped the few measly presents we had gathered. And we tried hard to invoke the spirit of Christmas. And I guess it worked, because on Christmas Eve, when we went to the rehab center, they released Mom. They let us take her home. Christmas morning, I woke up early and I made our traditional Pillsbury cinnamon rolls. And then when everyone got up, we gathered around the tree. And yes, there were presents under it, but that hardly mattered. Mom made that Christmas. She was alive. She was home. Nothing could be a better gift than that.